Hello and welcome to Lights Out with the Houston Public Library. I'm Miss Jolie, and tonight I will be sharing with you the Russian folktale of King Frost. There was once upon a time a peasant woman who had a daughter and a stepdaughter. The daughter had her own way in everything. Whatever she did was right in her mother's eyes. But the poor stepdaughter had a hard time. Let her do what she would, she was always blamed, and got small thanks for the trouble she took. Nothing was right and everything was wrong, and yet, if the truth were known, the girl was worth her weight in gold. She was so unselfish and good-hearted. But her stepmother did not like her, and the poor girl's days were spent in weeping, for it was impossible to live peacefully with the woman. The wicked shrew was determined to get rid of the girl by fair means or foul, and kept saying to her father, "Send her away, old man. Send her away anywhere that my eyes shan't be plagued any longer by the sight of her, or my ears tormented by the sound of her voice. Send her out into the fields, and let the cutting frost do for her." In vain did the poor old man implore and weep for her pity. She was firm, and he dared not gainsay her. So he placed his daughter in a sledge, not even daring to give her a horsecloth to keep herself warm, and drove her out into the bare, open fields, where he kissed her and left her, driving home as fast as he could, that he might not witness her miserable death. Deserted by her father, the poor girl sat down under a fir tree at the edge of the forest and began to weep silently. Suddenly, she heard a faint sound. It was King Frost, springing from tree to tree and crackling his fingers as he went. At length, he reached the fir tree beneath which she was sitting, and with a crisp crackling sound, he alighted beside her and looked at her lovely face. "Well, maiden," he snapped out, "do you know who I am? I am King Frost, King of the Red Noses." "All hail to you, great king," answered the girl in a gentle, trembling voice. "Have you come to take me?" "Are you warm, maiden?" he replied. "Quite warm, King Frost," she answered as she shivered. Then King Frost stooped down and bent over the girl, and the crackling sound grew louder, and the air seemed to be full of knives and daggers, and again he asked, "Maiden, are you warm? Are you warm, beautiful girl?" And though her breath was almost frozen upon her lips, she whispered gently, "Quite warm, King Frost." Then the king gnashed his teeth and cracked his fingers, and his eyes sparked, and the crackling, crisp sound was louder than ever, and for the last time he asked her, "Maiden, are you still warm? Are you still warm, little love?" And the poor girl was so stiff and numb she could barely gasp, "Still warm, O king." Now, her gentle, courteous words and her uncomplaining ways touched King Frost, and he had pity on her, and he wrapped her up in fine furs and covered her with blankets, and he fetched a great box in which were beautiful jewels and rich robes embroidered in gold and silver, and she put them on and looked more lovely than ever. King Frost stepped with her into his sledge with 6 white horses. In the meantime, the wicked stepmother was waiting at home for news of the girl's death and preparing pancakes for the funeral feast. And she said to her husband, "Old man, you had better go out into the fields and find your daughter's body to bury her." Just as the old man was leaving the house, the little dog under the table began to bark, "Arf, arf," saying, "Your daughter shall live to be your delight. Her daughter shall die this very night." "Hold your tongue, you foul beast," scolded the woman. "There's a pancake for you, but you must say, 'Her daughter shall have much silver and gold. His daughter is frozen, quite stiff and cold.'" But the dog ate up the pancake and barked, "Arf, arf," saying, "His daughter shall wear a crown on her head. Her daughter shall die unwooed and unwed." Then the old woman tried to coax the dog with more pancakes and to terrify it with blows, but it barked on, "Arf, always repeating the same words, and suddenly the door creaked and flew open, and a great heavy chest was pushed in, and behind it came the stepdaughter, radiant and beautiful, in a dress all glittering with silver and gold. For a moment the stepmother's eyes were dazzled. Then she called to her husband, "Old man, yoke the horses at once, and take my daughter in the sledge to the same field and leave her on the very same spot." And so the old man took the girl and left her beneath the same tree where he had parted with his daughter. In a few minutes, King Frost came past, and looking at this girl, he said, "Are you warm, maiden?" "What a blind old fool you must be to ask such a question," she answered. "Can't you see that my hands and feet are nearly frozen?" Then King Frost sprang to and fro, questioning her and getting only rude, rough responses in reply, till at last he got very angry and cracked his fingers and gnashed his teeth and froze her to death. But in the hut her mother was waiting for her return, and as she grew impatient she said to her husband, "Get out the horses, old man, and go fetch her home, but see that you are quite careful not to upset the sledge and lose her chest." But the dog beneath the table began to bark, saying, "Your daughter is frozen quite stiff and cold, and shall never have a chest full of gold." "Don't tell such wicked lies," scolded the woman. "There's a cake for you. Now say, her daughter shall marry a mighty king." At that moment the door flew open, and she rushed out to meet her daughter. And as she took her frozen body in her arms, she too was chilled to death. The end. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you again soon.